why would we have ambassadors representing the state that do not understand clearly what their terms of reference are?
To the cards that I have drawn that I am the minister at this point in time. And for members of the public...
But you're also a servant of the people. The unions are not threatening to withdraw their labor, and neither are they threatening to shut the country down, as you did.
I think your summarization of my position is highly inaccurate, and may I dare say a bit inflammatory.
The strategy did not work the last time for you. So what would make this?
Well, you're assuming that we're doing the same strategy.
Hello and welcome to the May 1st edition of the Bubb Report. This week, Grenada joins the rest of the international community in celebrating International Workers' Day. International Workers' Day 2022 is being observed against the backdrop of a panoply of issues affecting the local labor market, including the recent pensions ruling that has the potential to reshape the current economy of Grenada dramatically, worker productivity and employment conditions in the public and private sector, inflation and its impact on the Grenadian worker, the importance of a living wage, vaccine mandates and the Constitution, retirement, and so much more. Last week, the subtext of public pronouncements delivered by both the Prime Minister and the NDC leader offered competing visions concerning the fiscal impact of the pension ruling.
Preliminary indication, and these are just preliminary numbers, are that we will have to find at least $465 million. Sister brothers, take that in. $465 million. That's not all. And then on average, we'd have to find $120 more million each year for at least the next 37 years. And that figure is without considering inflation. 37 years, Keith Mitchell will not be there.
It is the spirit of reassurance that our senior and retiring citizens strive for and held on to. The assurance that their hard work in building Grenada over the last 48 years will not go in vain, nor will their standard of living drop as a result of not being paid a pension, or a pension that does not allow them to sustain or maintain their standard of living. It is that spirit that our public service workers held on to for over 30 years in their quest to be paid a pension.
The dueling addresses came on the heels of a rally held by the ruling party in the northern parish of St. Patrick, in which Labour Minister Peter David also addressed some of the labour issues affecting the country.
We have done all that is humanly possible to ensure justice for workers. I have worked as part of the NMP government as Minister of Labour to ensure a stable and prosperous industrial environment.
This week on our program, we sit with a diverse panel of policy and labor experts to discuss the industrial relations climate in Grenada on International Workers' Day. Also on the report, we sit with the NDC Caretaker candidate for the constituency of Carriacou and Petite Martinique and recently elected NDC chairman Tevin Andrews to assess his chances at unseating the hand-picked successor to Elvin Nimrod, Kendra Mathurin Stewart. She is not shy about her delivery record on the sister isle of Carriacou and Petite Martinique. Mathurin Stewart, the first-time Member of Parliament and the second female after Joan Purcell, continues the unbroken string of victories that NNP candidates have delivered on behalf of their party on the sister isles. Even before Grenada became a politically independent sovereign state in 1974, the constituency of Carriacou and Petite Martinique traditionally voted for the Grenada National Party. The party eventually merged with Francis Alexis's Grenada Democratic Movement and George Brezan's National Democratic Party at the Ronald Reagan-sponsored Union Island Conference on August 26, 1984, to become the new national party as we know today. Herbert Augustus Blaise won elections as the GNP leader and candidate in 1957, 1961, 1962, 1967, and 1972 respectively, and as the NNP leader in the December 1984 elections. Blaise also has the history-making distinction of being the first elected premier of Grenada when the colony of Grenada became an associated state in 1967. Blaise repeated that distinction in a post-independence Grenada in 1984, when he became the first prime minister from the sister island and the second Grenadian prime minister to die while serving as the state's chief executive. The NDC, on the other hand, clinched the Carriacou and Petite Martinique seat in 1990 under the leadership of NDC's political leader, Nicholas Brathwaite at the time, and in 1995, when Joan Purcell won the seat by a squeaker against Elvin Nimrod. The latter contested the seat as an independent candidate before switching his allegiance to the NNP and winning the seat in 4 consecutive elections. However, the NDC came close to winning the Carriacou and Petite Martinique constituency in the November 2003 elections, when its contender, George Prime, lost the seat by a mere 7 votes. This margin stood between them and state power after they won 7 seats to the NNP's 8 seats in that year. Since then, the party has struggled to wrest control of the seat and has now turned to a community organizer and youth activist who is also carving a niche of his own on the political landscape in Grenada. This week on our program, we discuss Tevin Andrews' bid to become the next elected Member of Parliament of the constituency of Carriacou and Petite Martinique. We welcome our guests, Senator Simon Steele, the leader of government's business in the Grenada Senate, Dr. Stephen Fletcher, public policy consultant, Mr. Kenny James, trade union activist, and Tevin Andrews, the NDC Caretaker candidate of the Carriacou and Petite Martinique constituency. We thank you for joining us. As Grenada continues to anticipate the Prime Minister's announcement of another election, we are observing the evolution of a more politically polarized media landscape in which both political parties have taken a firm grip on their message, leaving no room for error, as well as the messaging infrastructure through which these messages are delivered. They have come to rely less on journalists to tell their stories, and sometimes see the news media as an extension of their public relations infrastructure. Not to be outdone, the NDC has also carved its own niche in a newly digitally mediated political landscape, but one which may not have the same reach as what the incumbent party can naturally afford to do. The result of this polarized landscape is that we have witnessed the actualization of 2 Grenadian echo chambers, The views and opinions of each party are repeated and reinforced without allowing much room for dissenting and independent voices. The preceding reality is why the journalist's role is essential in this election cycle. But I'm afraid, given how low the standard that some of our veteran journalists have sunk, with the penchant for publishing thinly sourced and poorly researched articles that passes as news stories, or the blatant lack of preparation that others put into hosting what is supposed to be defined as serious news content that Grenadians of all political stripes and shades, who deserve to have a well-rounded view of the issues from all sides, may be hard-pressed to find serious journalism that fact-checks claims made by politicians and their apologists. But for those who still believe in the importance of an independent press, may I present some of the principles that journalists should follow when reporting on elections. Firstly, the primary duty of a journalist is to report accurately and without bias. A journalist shall report only in accordance with the facts of which he or she knows the origin. A journalist shall not suppress essential information. A journalist shall observe professional secrecy regarding the source of information obtained in confidence. A journalist shall report in a balanced manner. If a candidate makes an allegation against another candidate, the journalist should seek comment and clarification from both sides where possible. A journalist shall do the utmost to correct any published information that is found to be harmfully inaccurate. As far as possible, a journalist shall report the views of candidates and political parties directly and in their own words, rather than as others describe them. A journalist shall avoid using language or expressing sentiments that may further discrimination or violence on any grounds. When reporting on the opinions of those who do advocate discrimination or violence, a journalist shall do the utmost to put such views in a clear context and to inform the views of those against whom such sentiments are directed. A journalist shall not accept any inducement from a politician or candidate. A journalist shall not make any promise to a politician about the content of a news report. In the final analysis, however, the media landscape in Grenada may be going the way of other Caribbean democracies, as well as Western democracies, where the one who pays the piper calls the tune. A pleasant good morning again to all our viewers and listeners of the Bubb Report. And before we begin, I just want to take a moment to pause and acknowledge the death of my former colleague, George Grant, who died 2 years ago, 2 days shy and 2 years ago. And we want to take a moment to acknowledge and pay respects to Mr. Grant for his contribution to broadcasting and broadcast journalism in Grenada. May Mr. Grant, my mentor, continue to rest in peace, and may his memory continue to be a blessing. And at this time, I wish to welcome the NDC Caretaker candidate of the constituency of Carriacou and Petite Martinique, Mr. Tevin Andrews. It appears that you always, we invite you on the Bubb Report around this time of year. You were here shy of 1 year ago, so welcome back to the report.
Thank you, Kellon. Dr. Bob, sorry, thank you very much, and of course, yes, congratulations on your attaining such prestige degree. I mean, you are indeed a role model to many young men here in Grenada, and of course, showing us that the sky is the limit, and that as young men we should try and do same. So thanks. So congratulations.
Absolutely.
Let me also use the opportunity to.
Yes.
to acknowledge our public workers. Today, workers in general, today is work known as Meaty Workers' Day. So workers, the National Democratic Congress stands with you. Continue to fight on, continue the struggle. We are standing with you. Pension, gratuity is a must. The NDC in the coming days, weeks, will explain to you our plans in terms of how we intend to pay you pensions. I think it's really a disgrace that politicians, after after 2 terms, are entitled to pension and gratuity. After 1 term, entitled to gratuity. After 2 terms, entitled to pension. And the public officers, doctors, nurses that continue to work day after day, night after night, putting in the work, sacrificing for this country, goes home with nothing after 30, 25 years. That is not right. And I was hoping that the Prime Minister in his address would have said, well, listen, since we have not found a solution to pay pension as yet, or in the meantime, while we wait, in the meantime, what we are going to do, we're going to see that all politicians who are receiving their pension would not receive until we sort of pension crisis. But we'll get to that. That's not what I'm not here to discuss pension.
Well, I'm aware we will get into that. We're not having a policy conversation, but certainly the counter argument would be that politicians don't serve in the same way that public servants serve with respect to their security of tenure. You can be voted in today and voted out tomorrow, but that's a counter argument. We're not going to get into it today, Mr. Andrews. But let us get to your candidacy for the NDC in the constituency of Carriacou and Petite Martinique. I don't know who the audio issue is. I don't know if it's on my end or your end there. But I believe it's on your end there, Mr. Andrews. I don't know if you have headphones or so that we can maybe get you to adjust there if you have headphones.
I don't have headphones.
But we will press on. We will press on. We will press on. We'll have to press on. So let us talk about your plans and programs for Carriacou and Petite Martinique. Today, we want to take a different approach and get more into the weeds with respect to your roadmap for victory in the constituency. Now, there are 11 polling divisions in Carriacou and Petite Martinique, Mr. Andrews. In the last election, 1,424 constituents did not vote, and you actually lost the seat by only 170 votes. What specific polling divisions have you been working in to close this gap?
We've been working in all polling divisions, and you're correct. We lost the constituency by 170 votes. Not this time around, because we have been putting in the work. And the difference with my former colleagues, whether it's Sir Nicholas Braffett, who is resting peacefully, my dear sister Purcell, Sister June Purcell, Brother Primo Prime, and others. The difference is that I've been on the ground since the last election. I've never left. I've taken on the politics as a hobby, if you want to put it that way, as a job, as a career. This is what I've been focusing on for the last 4 years. Every day, every night, I sleep, eat, drink politics. So we've been putting in the work. We went in 2003 when the NDC lost by anyway, when the NDC lost in 2003, because that again is a whole debate. But when we lost in 2003, I examined the numbers. I spoke to the members that were involved in the 2003 elections, and I know exactly where we went wrong, what we should have done differently to ensure that we were successful in the election to come ahead, which was the 2008 election. So some things were not done. So what we have been doing is putting in the work, working on all 11 polling divisions, and yeah, I am satisfied. I'm satisfied with the work that we've been putting in. We are seeing the results. Interestingly, we so much so that in 2018, when the elections was called, we had just about 4,300 something people registered to vote. And as of today, we have 5,000 202 or 4 people registered to vote. And the addendum that came out on the 27th of this month showed that there are some additional people registered. And we have been leading the registration drive in Carriacou and Petite Martinique. Although we're going to talk about the issues at the electoral office as it relates to non-nationals, Commonwealth citizens that are not qualified to register are being registered. But we're going to talk about that at another time. But to answer your question, we have been working in all 11 polling divisions. We have not been focusing on neglecting any polling division. All, in our view, are winnable. All are important, and we've been putting in the work there. I wouldn't go into details, but I could tell you that our presence has been in every single polling division, and we are satisfied with the results that we are seeing. We have seen the results, and we are happy about it. Of course, we are not taking anything for granted. We are cautiously optimistic, and we are continuing to put in the work. Of course, we have not unveiled or rolled out all our strategies as yet. Whenever the elections are called, you would see what I'm talking about. But we have been putting in the work for the last 4 years, and we are satisfied.
I do not want to be the one to interrupt your flow, Mr. Andrew, but you would have to log in from your computer, because you being on the phone is causing serious feedback.
Okay, I'll do that.
Yeah, so just log on and log back in. Viewers, I do apologize for the quality of this audio. There appears to be some cross audio distortion there that we are going to attempt to address, and once we have Mrs. Andrews come back on another device, then we will continue with the conversation. So we will take a quick break here, and we'll come back with Mr. Andrews shortly. Why would we have ambassadors representing the state that do not understand clearly what their terms of reference are?
These are the cards that I have drawn, that I am the minister at this point in time. And for members of the public...
But you're also a servant of the people. The unions are not threatening to withdraw their labor, and neither are they threatening to shut the country down, as you did.
I think your summarization of my position is highly inaccurate, and may I dare say a bit inflammatory.
The strategy did not work the last time for you. So what would make this?
Well, you're assuming that we're doing the same strategy.
Welcome back, folks. While we wait on Mr. Tevin Andrews to return to the stream, I would bring in Mr. Kenny James here. Mr. James, welcome to the report. You certainly have to come back for the panel, but just give us a sense of the flavor down at Tantine today in the town of St. George. What is the mood of the workers like as you prepare for another Labor Day rally?
Thank you, Kelon, and good morning to you. Good morning to all our viewers. It's a carnival-like atmosphere on Port Highway right now. I'm trying to get ahead of some of the music that I can give our viewers a shot as what is happening here. The march today is led by the Seamen and Waterfront Workers Union, then the Commercial and Industrial Workers Union, GUT. As a matter of fact, we're here now looking at GUT.
Okay.
GUT is followed by Bank and General Workers Union, then the Technical and Allied Workers Union, the Public Workers Union, and the Grenada Maritime and Mental Intellectual Workers Union, GMMIWU. So it's a wonderful, bright, sunny day, and the workers are really out in their numbers. There's some space between the unions. So right now I am in front of GUT, and for those of you who are aware as to what Port Highway is like, I am now at the roundabout, and GUT is followed by Bank and General Workers Union, who is now in front of Public Workers Union. So that is to give you an idea as to the strength we have in terms of participation.
Are you seeing other people who might not necessarily be part of the union there as well, part of the union membership, if you will, or other Grenadians who are participating in the activity?
Hold on a bit, Kelon. Let me just get out of the direct sound of the DJ so I can hear you.
Yes.
All right, go ahead.
Yeah, so are you seeing a wide cross-section of Grenadians? Not so much, of course, the union rank and file would be there, but other Grenadians, have they come out this morning to participate in May Day celebrations?
Grenadians from all walks of life are out this morning in their unions and even in their vehicles. Some people are there looking on, cheering on, wanting to see what's on the placards. And I must say, there are a lot of placards out today. Apart from the fanfare that the unions have put on, there's a lot of placards out on this parade today. So it's well attended, I must say, not just by the active participants, but the onlookers also.
All right. Okay, Mr. James, thank you for that quick update. We will be getting back to you hopefully by 11:45 p.m. to be part of the panel segment with Senator Simon Steele and Dr. Stephen Fletcher. We have some questions for you with respect to the state of the industrial relations climate in Grenada. But thank you for that on-the-ground update. It is always good to get a flavor of what the ground looks like on May Day. And of course, congratulations to you and the labor movement in Grenada on observing another Labor Day, sir.
All right, Kelon, we'll see then.
All right, thank you. And that was Mr. Kenny James, a trade union activist and a member of the Trades Union Council and the Grenada Union of Teachers. And let's see if we can get back to Mr. Andrews now. Mr. Andrews, are you there?
I am here. Hope you're hearing me.
Loud and clear. The visuals, we'll have to work with what we have.
Work with what we have for now.
That's just the nature of technology. But
yes.
Mr. Andrews, as a follow-up to your previous response, were you able to do a post-mortem about why you lost the seat in the first place the last time around? And what would you do differently this time to ensure that the strategy would work for you? Because you're coming up against a well-funded, some might say, candidate, a well-resourced candidate who is putting in the work in that constituency as well. Your thoughts?
Well, I would disagree. I beg to differ as it relates to putting in the work. I don't know what work you're talking about in the constituency. However, what I can tell you is that yes, we did a postmortem, and our strategies are different. Our strategies are different, and I have no doubt in my mind, based on the postmortem, based on the work that we are putting in and the strategies that we are executing, that will be successful whenever the elections are called, whenever the bell is rung.
Now let's talk about your current representative's track record, your parliamentary representative. In the last budget debate, Minister Kendra Maturin-Stewart laid out an extensive laundry list of accomplishments, including the rebuilding and smarting of the Hillsborough Health Center and the rehabilitation and smarting of the Princess Royal Hospital to include a new x-ray machine, the sick bay on the Osprey lines, school rehabilitation across the country, across the sister islands, the Chinese housing project, several road projects. She's touted a stellar record of infrastructural development in the constituency. How does one compete with that, Mr. Andrews?
Well, first of all,
what she might call an impressive record of delivery.
Well, first of all, let me start with the smarting of the hospital and the clinic. That's an initiative that was signed back in 2010, thereabout, under the NDC government. It's a Commonwealth initiative. The British government funded it and funded several projects throughout the Commonwealth. So this project has nothing to do with Maturin-Stewart. I just want to get that out of the way. As it relates to the the X-ray machine at the Princess Royal Hospital, we must give credit where credit is due. Thank SGU and some of the student alumni for donating that X-ray to the Princess Royal Hospital. It has nothing to do with Matrin Stewart. Of course, it all happened under her watch, but let's be real. And that, as relates to smarting of the Hillsborough Clinic and the hospital, that has to do with the British government. And of course, as I've stated, it's something that was done back in 2010 thereabout. Of course, Carriacou got its share. Now, because the implementing of things take a little longer than usual. Infrastructure development. Let's talk about the two major roads that was done, the feeder roads. It was done. One was done in Cherry Hill. One was done in the Creeks, and if I'm not mistaken. Again, those are funds that Nazim Burke and the NDC fought for, and Carriacou is benefiting from it now. But again, let's not. I would never judge or give credit to any government minister, not even to Nicholas Braffett, who is known as the member of parliament to have delivered in terms of infrastructure development for Carriacou and Petite Martinique. I'm not going to boast or big up any MP for doing what they're supposed to do. It's not a favor that any MP is doing to their constituents for building roads. This is your responsibility. These are tax dollars that are being used. As it relates to the sick bay on the Osprey, we let's give them a Nancy Pelosi clap for that. However, it should have been done in consultations with the doctors and nurses of the Princess Royal Hospital, because the doctors and nurses will tell you the challenges that they face and the patient face as it relates to that sick bay. As a matter of fact, most patients when traveling, if it's not a critical situation, they prefer going with the Dolly C because it's more adequate and more comfortable. But nevertheless, we give them a Nancy Pelosi clap for that. But I would have loved to hear about what are we doing as it relates to the inter-island travel between the sister isles and mainland. I want to hear about what about the fire truck on Petite Martinique. I want to hear about patients and the lack of basic medical equipment, diagnostic equipment, and medication at the Princess Royal Hospital, so that every single or 99% of the emergencies that the doctors and nurses face at Princess Royal must be transferred to Grenada. That's what I want to talk about. How can we improve the healthcare system in Carriacou and Petite Martinique, but we don't have to transport patient to Grenada in the first place? I want us to talk about the lack of sporting facilities in Carriacou. We don't have a tennis court, we don't have basketball courts, proper basketball courts, and so on. We have two playing field that's lit up, the stadium and the Hillsborough playing field, but it's not even. It has not even met the minimum standard in terms of playing cricket and football, in terms of the lighting. So those are the sort of things that I really want us to talk about. How do we create jobs, sustainable jobs? What are we doing as it relates to supporting our fishermen and women? What are we doing what are we doing as it relates to agriculture? Taking into consideration that Carriacou and Petite Martinique once exported just about everything as it relates to agriculture, whether it's cotton, lime, whether it's peas, whether it's talk about groundnut, you name it, we exported it, and today we are importing just about everything. So those are the things that I really want us to talk about. I mean, yes, roads, Nancy Pelosi clap, and the other infrastructure development. Thank God for the British government, as I said, 2010 initiative, and of course the two major roads, which cost a few $1 million, NDC initiative. But let's talk.
Okay. Now, and I would be bringing up the question about inter-island air travel. You preempted that, but I'll get back to it there. Now, the relocation of the main port from Hillsborough to Harveyville has been the subject of much controversy. If your party were to win the next elections, Mr. Andrews, would you relocate the port back to Hillsborough, or would you want to see that the port continues to remain in Harveyville? What are your thoughts on what that would be?
Hillsborough, there's no doubt in my mind that Hillsborough has to be the port of entry. I'm not going to advocate that we move back the port from Harveyville to Hillsborough, but the reality is that it's an inconvenience to many of the businesses in Hillsborough. And our forefathers, when they decided to make Hillsborough, when they did the assessment, they decided to make Hillsborough the port of entry. They knew why, because it's the central location. And based on the polls that was conducted, based on the cry of the people, the business community, there's no doubt in our minds that we need to ensure that we rebuild the jetty in Hillsborough and make Hillsborough the port of entry, or a port of entry rather. So that is something that's on the table and has to be done. There's no doubt in my mind about that. And let me tell you something. Both a few days ago, I was speaking to a well-known NNP. Well, so his allegiance is towards the NNP. Speaking to this businessman who supports the New National Party, who came into my office and was saying how much the change has affected his business. And whether you're NNP or NDC, the change has affected a lot of people's business in the town of Hillsborough. So we need to make it a port of entry. But we're going to discuss that in the coming weeks and so in terms of how we intend to do that. Mm-hmm. But that is something
let's talk about air travel. Now, some would say that you have been a loud advocate of this issue. So I'm sure you would welcome Minister Clarice Modeste's announcement last week to have 2 flights per day to Carriacou with the use of the twin otter aircraft. Let me finish the question, please, Mr. Andrew. Yeah. How do you react to this announcement? I mean, you have advocated for that, and now it would appear that the government is responding to that advocacy by making a commitment to have a twin otter aircraft that would provide 2 daily flights to Carriacou. Your response? Go ahead.
Have you seen it happen?
The announcement was made only last week.
The minister for civil aviation
last week.
The minister for civil aviation should not take the people of Carriacou and Petite Martinique as papi show. The minister for civil aviation, Honorable Clarice Charles, should not should not be taking the people of Carriacou and Petite Martinique and make papi show, because she knows that is not factual. She knows that the negotiations that they've entered into with the airlines, SVG, and I understand One Caribbean, or however they call it, did not go as planned. So to try and make the people of Carriacou and Petite Martinique, give them a false sense of hope, because this is not the first time they are doing this, giving us a false sense of hope because an election is coming. The minister needs to stop that. Be real with the people. And the reality is, this NNP administration is not willing and they are not ready to make the necessary investment as it relates to the people of Carriacou and Petite Martinique. Because if they were willing, they would have done so already. They have been in charge of Carriacou and Petite Martinique affairs for the last 23 years. Taking into consideration, my brother, that in the southern Grenadines, in the Grenadine Islands, Carriacou had the first airport. And if you look at the other Grenadine airports now, they have all gone and left Carriacou Airport behind. They have way more developed. Several flights coming in a day and many different airlines coming in. Twin Otters, jets, and what name it. And we are left behind. Why? Because the investment has not been made. Papa Blaise, Honorable Hubert Blaise, was the one who brought the airport, who built the first airport. Nicholas Brathwaite is the one who refurbished the airport, turned it into a concrete structure, resurfaced the runway and put lights and all of that on the airport stretch and all of that. Since Nicholas Brathwaite and the NDC did that, no major work again was done as it relates to the airport. And under Nicholas Brathwaite era, we had over 3 airlines flying into Carriacou, Regionair, Hellenier, even Liat landed here. You had Twin Otters landing here with a shorter airstrip than we have now. Because the government then, the NDC government then, recognized the sister isle as a very important part of Grenada and made the investment. Now, this administration is taking the people of Carriacou and Petite Martinique for papi show and continue to send us further and further as fools. And I'm saying to the minister, the member of parliament for St. Mark's, don't do that to us. Because she knows in her heart, and I know she knows that what she said at the press conference is nothing but a fallacy.
Well, I trust that you would also telegraph that directly to the minister and to your MP. But by the way, we're hoping that we can have both yourself, and you've not been shy in appearing on the platform, the Bubb Report, and the MP as part of a constituency forum. That's one of the things that we want. We want to hear from both MPs, not through filters, but through the mouths of both MPs. So we would certainly want to welcome the MP for Carriacou and Petite Martinique, in the interest of balance, to appear on the Bubb Report. Now, Mr. Andrew, moving on, you've been very vigilant with respect to taking to social media whenever the Parliamentary Elections Office in Carriacou was found to be closed during regular business hours, or maybe when they went off to lunch, or didn't return to lunch, whatever the case might be. And so what communication have you been having with the Supervisor of Elections on this issue? I did ask Mr. Elvis Moraine about this on his last appearance on the report. Not sure if you saw the episode, but he did indicate that attempts are being made to ensure a much more professionalized operation at the elections office there in Carriacou. Have you seen improvements since that pronouncement? What improvements have been made since you have been raising those issues?
Zero improvement. Zero improvement. As a matter of fact, I call it electoral office on a regular basis. As a matter of fact, they find me very annoying. So much so that the deputy supervisor of election, whenever she hears my voice, she either says that she's in a meeting or she can't take the call for one reason or the other. I recall the last time I called to speak to the deputy supervisor of election, because the supervisor of election is never in office, because of course he is a public officer, a permanent secretary, so he has other responsibilities. And I think it was quarter to 4 thereabout, or about 3:30 thereabout, and she said, "Listen, Mr. Andrews, I'm sorry, the office is about to close, and I can't take your call. We are locking up, and the office closed, at 5 o'clock." That's how much annoying they are about when I call the office. But I call the office regularly as it relates to issues. The office is closed without proper notice. And oftentimes I tell the sub-office in Carriacou, or even the office in Grenada, whenever you're closing, maybe there are reasons. Someone might fall sick, you might be out in the field, whatever the case may be, just inform us, or put a circular out on social media, on the radio, what have you, so that we can all be informed, because we are all, and when I say we, I'm talking about my opponents as well, encouraging people to get registered to vote. So could you imagine, we bring a busload of people to get registered to vote. They would have they took the time out from work, the busy schedule, to come to the electoral office to get registered. And when you get there, the office is closed. Do you think that those people would have the energy again to come at another time to get registered? No. They've taken the time off to do so, and they get there and the office is closed. So those are the sort of things I've been telling the electoral office. And no, they have not. The office decided that because our office, our campaign office, we have a campaign office which is close to theirs, and our campaign office was launched in March. They decided that they are moving their office, and they're supposed to move their office in the end of last month, April, and a date was given, and they decided to move it even before that time. And interestingly, when they moved it, a group of Vincentians or non-nationals decided to come down, illegally entered the country. Some justice of the peace. And I want to tell those justice of the peace that there are consequences for your actions. And including those Vincentians who got registered, there are consequences for your actions. Because the Representation of the People Act clearly states that those who give false information to the registration officer will be dealt with by the court of law. And those justice of the peace who signs the declaration forms for those Vincentians knowing that those Vincentians do not reside in Carriacou or any polling division within Carriacou and Petite Martinique, and sign off that declaration form, you are falsifying that document. And so there are consequences for that.
Right. What are you planning to do? Are you going to pursue a legal route for this?
The party will respond to this matter in short order. but we intend to take it all the way. Even if it means making an example out of those justice of the peace that are illegally registering people, illegally falsifying documents for non-nationals that are not qualified to register, and for those people that are illegally entering the country, illegally so, coming into the country to get registered, you too will be dealt with accordingly. Because I just don't understand, and even the electoral office must take some responsibility for this. How can someone from Grenada just show up one morning in St. Vincent and get registered to vote? Help me make that making sense to you? It is too easy for someone to come out from wherever illegally, enter the country, and get registered to vote. This is unheard of. We have the names of the individuals who got registered. We have your photos. We have your phone numbers. We have the names of the justice of the peace who illegally signed those documents, and we are coming after you. And mind you, Kellon, Dr. Bob, this is not the first time that this happened here. It happened in 2018, and we didn't take it too seriously. Not this time. Not under my watch again. We are going to make them feel the full breadth of the law. We are taking it all the way. And the team of lawyers of the National Democratic Congress are on standby. They were briefed. The electoral office will be hearing from us. The public will be hearing from us. And those individuals who came into the country illegally will be hearing from our lawyers. And of course, the St. Vincent government is already on board, along with the immigration department. And here we will deal with them, including those justice of the peace that are doing this thing they know that is illegal.
All right, Mr. Andrews, now, you've been recently elected as the party chairman of the National Democratic Congress, perhaps one of the youngest party chairmen in the party's history. So congratulations to you on that score. Now, traditionally, one of the roles of the party chairman is to negotiate internal disagreements between party officials and candidates and to facilitate consistent policy messaging. What has been one of your most challenging assignments thus far in steering the Ssndc through the turbulent waters of internal party transformation? You have to admit, Mr. Andrews, that the last 6 months was a breath of fresh air for your party, but there were also a lot of palace intrigue. And your role as chairman is to really manage those conflicts when they emerge. So your thoughts?
Well, Kellon, what I can tell you is that the last 6 months has been, as you rightfully said, has been a breath of fresh air for the National Democratic Congress, for Grenada politics. Yes, there have been some challenging times, but what I can tell you is that looking at the history of the political party, examining the internal affairs of the party of the past and present, the times have not been as challenging as the past, and we have been able to manage internal conflicts. And mind you, all political parties, even families, even churches, any groups have internal conflicts. But we have been able to manage the internal conflicts within the organization. The National Democratic Congress is a united force. We understand the assignment, we understand the mission, and we are working towards that.
You say that, Mr. Andrews, but I would push back, as I did with the other caretaker candidates who have appeared on the Bubb Report with respect to united force. We are going into an election, but we can't see your deputy political leader. He remains absent from major political events that your party have held in the last couple of weeks in the middle of a campaign cycle. Why should the public not see this as a sign of discontent by Mr. Thomas? And
well, there's no discontent. There is no discontent by Mr. Thomas. There's no discontent.
Where is Mr. Thomas?
There's no discontent. Hold on. There's no discontent. There's none at all. I want to put that on the table. Now, the media are being made, but I want to just put it on the record that there's no disunity and that everybody is working together for the greater good of this great organization, but more so this great country. Yes,
So
we may all
the
listen.
question
We may all have
we may
all have our differences, but everyone, and I'm talking here now as the chairman of the organization, everyone is working together for the best, for the good of the country and in the best interest of this party. So you may not be seeing our deputy political leader, but I can assure you that he is there working for the greater good. You may not be seeing some others, but they are there working for the greater good. We understand the mission, we understand the assignment, and that is what we are doing.
We will be watching the space, Mr. Andrews, because we believe in putting the hard questions to both sides. And I assure you,
I understand
that if the Prime Minister, if he ever accepts our invitation, he never accepts our invitation. I don't know why. Some of his ministers have appeared on the Bubb Report, but we will be putting the tough questions to them as well. But you can understand that politics is also about optics. Yes? You would appreciate that, yes?
Well, this politics that we are involving is not just about optics. It's about saving the soul of Grenada. It's about transforming Grenada. It's about taking this country forward. I don't understand why this thing has to be about optics. Politics is way more than that. This is serious business. And as I've indicated to you, every single one of us are on board to take this country forward into prosperity for all of the people, including Mr. Thomas.
Okay.
I hope I answered the question, and I hope I dispel all the rumors and all the TTV here and there.
Well, and we come straight to the horse's mouth. I believe in that journalism, and I've also spoken to Mr. Thomas as well, to one of the viewers' questions. Jose Ernesto is saying, Mr. Andrew, if elected, would we see local government in Carriacou and Petite Martinique within your first 100 days?
What I can tell you is that local government is something that is high on the agenda of Carriacou and Petite Martinique, high on the National Democratic Congress agenda. We are serious about local government. The people of Carriacou and Petite Martinique has been clamoring for it. It is something that I really want to see as well. The people of Carriacou and Petite Martinique should be able to manage our affairs. And managing our affairs, mind you, don't mean that we are going to get rid of Grenada, or Grenada no longer going to have sea in Carriacou and Petite Martinique. It's simply going to mean that we're going to manage some of the local affairs here on the island. Of course, central government will still be in charge.
Okay. Let's get to another quick question. Alroy Philip is saying, a port doesn't have to be in the central business district. A port is a ubiquitous resource. It can be located anywhere. If one of the following, if one is following the Crystallina's central business model, if it's located outside of the capital, there will be an amalgamation of economic activities. There needs to be more planning where that is concerned.
I hear the brother, but guess what? It made no sense moving a port to create economic activity in one location and killing the economic activity in another. But what I'm saying, I'm not saying that we should done away with a port in Harveyville. I'm simply saying that the tongue should be a port of entry. That's what we are saying. The tongue should be a port of entry. And we will do what we have to do to ensure that happens. Okay, because so the businesses, the people, especially the people of Petite Martinique, the people in the northern area, the people in the central area are hurting. And as a representative of the people, I have to listen to the people's cry and represent them. And if that is what they want, then we should deliver. The only port of entry, as we speak, is Harveyville. Hillsborough, being well, it was the main port of entry. We need to ensure that it is a port of entry and do whatever it needs to take to make that happen.
Mm-hmm. So it would not be a case of throwing out the baby with the bathwater. You're not saying that you're going to abandon Harveyville altogether.
Correct.
In the interest of okay. All right.
Harveyville will remain, but Hillsborough must be a port of entry.
Okay. All right. Now, Anthony De Riggs is saying, I like the people of Carriacou and the emphasis on promoting culture. The mainland could learn a thing or two from them. I think we can all agree with that.
We can indeed. Let me tell you, and the reality is that under this administration, culture has been under attack. Our rich culture heritage has been dying. And we need to do something about that to revive that. And I want to commend people like the Rena Mills, the BC, the culture train of Carriacou, who have been fighting hard to keep up this rich tradition. I want to commend the people of Six Roads, Brunswick, Dumfries for ensuring that they continue with this traditional village maroon and so on. But if you look at what has been taking place, especially within the last 4 years, culture in Carriacou has been under attack. And we need to do more to preserve, to enhance, to protect, and to build the culture, our heritage. We need to do more. In less than a week, the government of Grenada made the decision that they're going to allow Carriacou and Petite Martinique to have some semblance of carnival. In less than a week, they organized something. We had almost 2 months or so, 3 months, to put structures in place for a Carriacou Maroon and String Band Festival, and that did not happen because they're not interested about the rich culture heritage. They're concerned about the jump up aspect, the Juve aspect of the carnival, Juve and jump up and the bacchanal. But the culture has been under attack, even with the creation of this festival board, which is creating more harm than good. I mean, that's a whole nother Bubb Report series session we have to have to talk about culture and how it has been under attack in Carriacou and Petite Martinique. But something that I really wanted to do is to ensure that we build and enhance the culture and our rich heritage here. So because I mean, we can tie that into to selling the island in terms of tourism product, and there are millions there to be made, and of course to expose the island more and more. So I agree with the statement that they made.
And one final question, Bob Marisho is asking, Tevin, how is the museum at Craigston doing? The museum at Craigston.
The museum at Craigston. Craigston don't have a museum, as far as I'm aware. We have a museum in Hillsborough, Patterson Street, and of course that has it has its challenges. The public relations office of the Carriacou Historical Society, which is also involved with the museum, and that has its challenges. Again, lack of support from government, who have always been promising support, and of course, and many other things. But Craigston don't have a museum.
All right, Mr. Andrews, thank you for appearing.
No, well, Bob, I taught you. It finished already. You listen. We need to have
you are the spotlight.
Listen, I want to see a Carriacou and Petite Martinique.
Yes,
I want to see a Carriacou and Petite Martinique if I'm elected as member of Parliament and given this opportunity. I want to create policies that will positively impact Carriacou and Petite Martinique, that will take us from strength to strength and prosperity for all, whether it's policy as it relates to enhancement of our culture and our rich cultural heritage, policy as it relates to sports. The sporting industry is a multi-billion-dollar industry. We need to improve the sporting facilities in Carriacou and Petite Martinique so we can create more Kirani James, we can create more netball stars and cricket stars like Emmanuel Stewart and so on, so that they can be exposed to the world, go out there and represent and partake or benefit from that multi-billion-dollar industry, including the music industry. We must respect our DJs, our artists, our singers, and so on, by investing more in them, so that they too can benefit from that multi-billion-dollar music industry. I would love to see that every school child, primary and secondary school child, learn an instrument. No child in Carriacou should come out of school without learning an instrument, whether it's the piano, the steel pan, and so on. And I would love to bring back the having the musical bands in the various communities. Do you know back then Carriacou had several village groups with steel bands? There was a steel band group in Belmont, Harveyville. There was a steel band group in Leicester, in Hillsborough, and so on. And today we have none of that. So those are some of the things that I would really, really love to see. I would love to see our island being united once again. We are too divided. The politics in general has been so divisive that our people, hate one another, and the community is not together. But I can go on and on and on. I also like to see a marine school, a technical school on the island that focus on marina studies. We have two marinas. Carriacou has produced several captains and boat builders and all of that. We need to take advantage of that. Building a school that focus on the marina industry that can enhance the talents and skills of the people of Carriacou and Petite Martinique, and of course encourage more of our young men and women to partake in that field. We should never allow that for. But Bob, please, the next time you invite me, I'm hoping, I'm sending a call. Next time that hopefully Mrs. Stewart will be here on the program, and I'll be more than happy to share some of the ideas and the plans and the policies that I want to see. And what is disappointing in all of this, Brother Bob?
Yes.
What is the name? Give me one. Mrs. Stewart has been the member of parliament for 4 years. What is one policy that she created? As a leader of a Ministry of Carriacou and Petite Martinique, what is one policy have you created to enhance, uplift, and take the people forward? What is one legislation have you take to Parliament? Because the people elected you in the House of Representatives in Parliament. What is one piece of policy that you brought to Parliament to say, I bring this on behalf of the people of Carriacou and Petite Martinique? I'm asking you, do you know of any policy?
I have not followed closely.
Well, you must follow. So this is your homework now. Your homework now. So when you invite us, you invite both my dear friend.
Absolutely.
When you invite my dear friend Kindra and I back, let's talk about that. This is what I'm interested in. Let me hear the policy. Because as leaders, as elected leaders, we want to talk about policies. What sort of policy you brought? How have you improved and changed the lives of the people? Don't come and tell me about you build two-footer concrete road and you put a little thing on the Osprey to transport patients down in Grenada, and we should be praising you for that. We give you a Nancy Pelosi clap, but the people of Carriacou and Petite Martinique deserve more than that.
I think Nancy Pelosi would be pleased to know that her clap is now being used in the Grenada political context. But Mr. Andrews, certainly you said something there that I think is important. We need to have conversations with each other that are sober-minded, that are mature, and that takes away the personalities from the equation. It's about the issues, and it should be about the issues. So that's what we attempt to do here on the Bubb Report.
Yeah, definitely.
Address these issues in that way. So certainly we will be working on seeing how we can get all of the various competing parties to this particular neutral space here on the Bubb Report to discuss the issues affecting the constituencies, because I firmly believe politics is local. So, Mr. Tevin Andrews, thank you for appearing on the Bubb Report.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Absolutely. Viewers and listeners, that was Mr. Tevin Andrews, the NDC caretaker candidate for the constituency of Carriacou and Petite Martinique, who has been nominated by his party to represent them in the upcoming elections. This will be his second go-around participating in competitive electoral politics in Grenada. And at this point, we want to take a quick break, and then we will get back with our panel segment for the week. But I also want to take the opportunity on the occasion of George Grant's untimely and sad transition to acknowledge all of George Grant's listeners who continue to listen to the Bubb Report. He calls them the gang who were part of the Shout Box. We have people like Ryan Gabon, Margaret Francis, Kipling Francis, Anthony the Riggs. If I'm missing anyone here, Sue Patrice as well as part of the George Grant family. And all of you, certainly thank you for being a part of the Bubb Report family as well, because you certainly make our Sunday programming special. It's a special opportunity for us whenever fans of George Grant are on board. So, folks, we will take a quick break and we will be back with the panel segment.
Turn the bishop upside down. I'm a born Butlerite. I am 94 years of age. So I grew up. He win, you know, he have a time he win. But, you know, he's a man that he didn't joke and he was very rude, you know. He didn't take it stupid by that.
The conditions of the poor Indians and Negroes in sugar and oil, respectively, was nothing short of subhuman.
And welcome back, viewers and listeners. At this point, I wish to take the opportunity to welcome the next panel segment. We're going to bring back here Mr. Kenny James. Mr. James, we are going to bring you back on the stream here. I believe you're now at the Otway House there on the Carriacou. Of course, the Otway House has a very important historic place in Grenadian trade union history. So certainly we want to, if you can hear us, please, Mr. James, just get back on camera here.
Yes, Dr. Barber.
Very well. I also have Senator Simon Steele. Senator Simon Steele, you also are of a kayak import, Carriacou and Petite Martinique as well, Senator Steele. And so the people of Carriacou have a saying, Kakabawi for Kakabawi. Yes. So welcome to the report. Senator Steele, go ahead, sir.
Good morning. Good morning to you. Good morning to Mr. James and your viewing audience. And I had a little listening to our colleague there in Carriacou, and it was quite interesting hearing his perspective on where things are in Carriacou. So as a brother Kakubawi, I'm not sure he was representing things as they actually are on the ground, but that's politics. That's politics.
And Senator Steele, that is why we need to have that live fact checking where both politicians can appear on a neutral platform to address these issues, to unpack these issues, so that we are getting away from the politicking. And in that context, since you're also from Carriacou, I am going to lobby for Senator, the Honorable Kindra Mathurin to appear on the Bubb Report as well, because hearing the other side is important. Please proceed.
Yeah, I just want to make one comment. And, you know, as I said, I listened in and out of Tevin's interview, and the picture that he's painted does not reflect the realities on the ground. As we all know, I was born in the UK, but I returned as a little child to Carriacou. The first time I visited as a little boy was in 1976 and visited regularly up until the point that I moved back. Carriacou is my home 20 years ago. And I've seen the evolution of Carriacou back in the 70s through to where we are now. And what we've seen, first of all, under Brother Nimrod and now with Sister Maturin Stewart, we've seen unprecedented development over the past terms that the NP has been in office and has been responsible for the management of Carriacou and Petite Martinique. Unprecedented, whether it's roads, hospital, education, other infrastructure, stadium, the hospital, unprecedented. And Carriacou today is unrecognizable to what it was like 20 odd years ago. So the work that has been done under the new National Party has been remarkable, a remarkable transformation. And it's easy for Tevin to sit there and pick holes in gaps. There's still a lot of work to do. It is not perfect. A lot more work needs to be done. But where we were and where we are now is night and day. And I'm sure if Kindra was here on the program, she'll be able to go into detail all that has been done. And it's disingenuous to imply that the work that has been done is attributable either to Nazim Burke, I don't know where that came from, or the British. It is under the stewardship of the new National Party. So I just want to set that record straight. And I'm sure Kindra would be more than happy to go into detail.
And please, I would be reaching out to the goodly Minister for Carriacou and Petite Martinique Affairs, because as I say, it's about balance, and it should be about balance. So Senator Steele, thank you again for accepting our invitation. And let me also thank Minister Emmeline Pear, who recommended you. You came in highly recommended, in fact, by your colleague there. But your administration is making the case that it has fostered a favorable industrial relations climate for the Grenadian worker. Now, how favorable can this pro-worker climate be, Senator, when there are employees in the public service who continue to work on contract labor? How sustainable is this model of job security? Or do we see contract labor within the broader context of trends that are occurring internationally? Your thoughts?
Well, the first thing, in terms of just speaking about the industrial climate, I mean, there is always historical tension between worker, labor, and employer. And that's not Grenada, that's the world over. That dynamic, that tension is always there. But if I reflect back on this period and I reflect on the industrial climate, I have to say it is good. It's a fair climate based on all of the challenges that we face. And I'm sure as the conversation goes on, whether it is, we're still in the midst of a pandemic that hasn't gone away, and the economic fallout, impact on jobs, impact on businesses, impact on households, cost of living. All
I think we're having some connection. Yes, Senator, we're having some connectivity issues there with you. So we will try to get back to you in a second. But Mr. James, the same question to you, and Dr. I don't know if Dr. Fletcher is there, but Senator Steele, we were having some connectivity issues. It seems to have stabilized a bit there. But Kenny James, same question to you. Are you hearing us, sir? You need to unmute your mic there, please.
The Workers Union is right below me. I'm upstairs at our just to give you a shot, you and the viewers a shot of what they look like. This is the last union on parade today. I thought we had GMMIW with us today, but they're not.
Okay, so Kenny, the same question I asked to Senator Steele. Assessing the current state of the industrial relations climate in Grenada under his administration's stewardship, how would you assess it? Now, he has given his administration's take on it. We want to hear from you with respect to how you view that.
Well, Kelon, to respond to that, I would say this. If you're a politician, you would say it was good. And you would say it was good because every benefit that you've had to give to the average worker, you were able to delay it. So we can look at the 4% increase that was due to public officers, that was delayed by how many months? We were told we can't pay, right? You look at the whole issue of regularization of workers who are on contract. You look at the upgrade of teachers, for example, and all of these things are being kicked down the road, right? And these are payments that are kicked down the road. We're not even talking about the pension yet. So from a political perspective, any administration would say we've been doing well because we've been delaying that. From a unionist perspective and the perspective of workers, we can't say that it has been good because every month that you get less than you deserve, that is affecting your family budget, right? And we have workers, public officers who work very hard and they expect to get their remuneration. So when it comes to that, it is clear that the approach seems to be we will do everything else first and then deal with the issue of labor. And whatever other issues that labor has, we will deal with that last. That seems to be the approach.
Yeah, but Senator Steele also made a point that historically there is a tendency to have that adversarial relationship between the state and the unions. That has been traditionally the case. So would you say that this happens as par for the course?
In some instances, Dr. Bob, yes. Because when we talk about industrial relations, for example, the unions always come from the perspective that we know you could pay. And whereas we may start negotiating, let's say, from 12%, it's customary for government to come to the table with zero. From the time I have been involved in this, I can't recall an administration coming to the negotiating table and saying to us, listen, this is the state of the economy, and right now we could only offer you 4 or 5%. They've always started at zero and are very slow to move, right? I believe if we have transparency in the process, in the sense that the government is going to be honest as to what they can do and what they're willing to do, then you could sit down and within short space of time, you would not have this kind of adversity. But most of the time, it always boils down to a situation where the government is trying trouble. The worker feels, no, we know you have it and we want you to pay. So traditionally, these things have happened. But when we look at the issues of regularization, when we look at the issues of contract work, the jury is still out on that as to whether that has been the case from time immemorial, right? I could tell you, we came from a system where from the time, for example, you graduated from Teachers College, the information went to the Ministry of Education and you were upgraded within a month or two. Now we're in a situation where the Ministry of Education is saying to us, well, you have to bring in your certification so that we could know that you pass and then to process. And so in the case of the GUT, for example, we have teachers who graduated from Teachers College since 2019, 2020, and today in 2022, they're yet to be upgraded. That, Kellon, shouldn't happen.
Okay, Dr. Fletcher, the Prime Minister, Senator Steele, did you want to add something?
Yeah.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah,
yes, go ahead.
Again, I don't think that's a fair reflection at all. We've gone through a period, again, a very difficult economic period, going through the pandemic, where you look at what's been happening in other jurisdictions where workers are sent home, where workers aren't getting paid. We've gone through this very difficult period where increments have been made, have been honored. There were some challenges, but they were honored. But the broader period, so coming out of structural adjustment to where we are now, over $140 million has been paid to public workers in increments, in back pay, in other benefits. Again, through this pandemic period, where other jurisdictions were sending public workers home, all were retained, all received income and income support in these incredibly difficult times. And again, I want to paint this broader picture in terms of support for workers, a fundamental responsibility that the government has is ensuring employment creation, security of tenure, job security. And again, since coming into office in 2013, with the exception of that brief spike during the pandemic, which has now come down, we've been creating new jobs and providing secure employment opportunities for those outside of the service. It's an incredible achievement during this period. So I can understand where Mr. James is coming from in terms of the picture he wishes to paint. If he thinks there is more on the table, he wishes to lay his claim on that. But government has a responsibility that goes beyond public workers. We are honoring all of our commitments. This whole pension issue we are proactively facing a challenge, a serious challenge that has vexed public workers for over 30 years. We're doing these really difficult things in addition to honoring those basic requirements. Let us just remember, let's go back. He talks about his dissatisfaction where workers go home in the evening and they feel dissatisfied that they haven't been properly remunerated. What happened during that period in 2008 to 2013, where public workers weren't paid? Assets being sold in order to pay those salaries that were paid. So I know the political temperature and this political environment that we're in, but it's important. It's really important for Mr. James to paint that full picture as to where we are at this time.
And let me bring in Mr. James. I will give you the chance to respond, but we definitely have to get Dr. Fletcher here. He has been waiting in the wind. Dr. Fletcher, thank you for appearing on the Bubb Report. And some may say, well, why is Dr. Fletcher here in the context of a discussion on the industrial relations climate on International Workers' Day? But Dr. Fletcher, you have a pulse of the civil society community, who the Prime Minister has indicated that he has consulted, that the government of Grenada has consulted on several occasions with respect to industrial relations. You are part of the social partners, as are the unions. So I want to get your take with respect to the industrial relations climate in Grenada, the labor market in Grenada in the context of the 21st century economy. And you can, of course, respond to any of the ideas that were just articulated here by both other gentlemen. So just unmute Dr. Fletcher and proceed.
Hi, good morning. Good morning, everyone, and panelists, as well as your viewers and listeners. Let me first take the opportunity to thank you for inviting me to be here, and to quickly say that my views this morning is not reflective of the civil society. Some organizational views is my own personal views. But as you have indicated, I have my pulse on many sectors of the economy and certainly of the population, and I might be able to give some reflection on that. The other point I want to make before we move further on, I want to salute the workers of this country, the hard-working, dedicated workers, the public servants, our teachers, our private sector workers, our independent workers in the farming community, fishermen, and so on, who have really stayed the course over the years and ensured that through their labor and sweat, that the Grenadian economy and the Grenadian people were able to survive not just our past natural disasters, but also COVID. And I am pleased to say that the workers of this country have made a significant contribution in that regard. However, there are some headwinds for us that we're going to face. And I trust that the worker organizations and the employers of the workers are steadying themselves to ensure that we are able to operate in an environment of peace, tranquility, for the benefit of all of our citizens. So I want to set that up front. So get on to the substantial question that you raised on the industrial climate. What is my assessment of this industrial climate? Let me say this, that the industrial climate in any country must be assessed on some basic tenets. And I want to put forth 3 or 4 of them and see how we assess them. One is the issue of the institutional arrangement that currently exists, both in the private and public sector, because the characterization of the industrial climate must be based on the key sectors of the economy and certainly the country. So we have the private sector, we have the industrial sector. At the institutional level, you raise the question of regulations, and regulations, in fact, of the contract workers, which is at stake at the moment. Certainly, the recent court ruling on the Pensions Act have raised the temperature of the workers in the country, and will definitely has implications for the industrial climate going forward. I listened to Brother Kenny James a while ago, and certainly there appears to be quite a high level of enthusiasm being expressed on the streets today. It was once, I think he defined it as carnival-like, and we know in the Grenadian context, when we have a Labor Day celebration and the workers are out in large numbers and they're in carnival-like atmosphere prevailed, we know that they are not totally happy. There are some levels of dissatisfaction going on, and we need to identify that. The issue of contract workers is also a critical factor and to consider in light of the implications of the Pension Act and what the contract workers are in fact looking for, what their expectations are, and we can return to that. The second critical factor is the political factor in any environment and how that impacts on the industrial climate. Certainly, we know that we are in an election, not year, but probably weeks or months. Election is going to be held. And certainly the issue of the political parties and the posturing on various issues and non-posturing and critical issues will impact the industrial climate. So politically, we have the government as represented by the new National Party in government that has taken a particular stance that will impact how workers feel, right? How workers feel about their job security, how they feel about their pension payments, how they feel about going forward. Those who have 10, 15, 20 years left in the public service, what is their reading? What is their trust factor on this issue? The pension payments and how that will impact. So that also, and the final point I want to make in terms of the industrial climate is to raise the issue of the economics and social impact. Kellon, there is no doubt that the workers in this country, the unemployed, the lower middle class, and in fact, probably the middle class, have been faced with significant price increases in recent years and months. And that is going to increase. There are heavy headwinds ahead of us that is going to have and already having significant impact on our prices. Up until probably 2019, prices remained relatively stable for most goods, but with the impact of COVID, we saw the supply chain being totally disrupted. And therefore that impacted on imports and import prices, because we have to bear in mind, viewers, listeners, panelists, and certainly Dr. Bubb, that Grenada being a small open economy as it is, with our ability to produce goods and export and consume for ourselves, that limitation that we have puts us in a position where our cost and our inflationary impact is heavily driven by imports. Our inability to feed ourselves, our inability to have a high level of production of the goods that we consume is impacting on us. And certainly COVID, and now compounded by the Ukraine conflict, is going to have significant impact on workers and workers' ability to go to the supermarket and get relatively the same amount of goods to consume with their families, which they're accustomed to for, let us say, $500. The value of the dollar has been decreased as the price of goods increase. This is a serious headwind that workers are going to be faced with. And workers and the organizations will react to the issue of the value of their pay packages and the impact to deal with and settle matters regarding their living wage, matters to do with the ability to live and live healthy, quality lives. And as a categorization of the industrial climate, I will say that it could be exceedingly uneasy. In some areas, we know there are open contradictions, as in the public sector. In the private sector, it doesn't seem to be much, except we have to keep close eyes on organizations like Grenada, for example, that has not been able to declare dividend. And we don't know what the internal employee-employer relations is like going forward with workers in a period negotiating for benefits and salaries and so forth. So we have to keep a very close eye in this environment, and I will say that it is going to be a choppy period going forward.
All right, and let me bring back Senator Steele here and Mr. Kenny James. Of course, last week the Prime Minister of Grenada and the leader of the National Democratic Congress, I almost said the leader of the opposition, who incidentally is also from Carriacou, but both gentlemen delivered national addresses and both also attempted to focus on the way forward with respect to the recent pensions ruling. Mr. James, I would want to begin with you. Your umbrella organizations, at least the major unions, refused to meet with the Prime Minister and his team on such an important issue, citing advice from others with respect to why you should not meet with the Prime Minister. You've had hundreds of meetings with the government on major issues. On such a critical issue, you refused to show up to the meeting. What was that about?
Kellon, Dr. Fletcher mentioned a critical issue in all that is happening now in the whole industrial relations climate, and that's the issue of trust. In 2018, the unions went to the table with the government of Grenada in an attempt to negotiate, to talk through some arrangement re the pension. When the administration and MOU was signed, which I would continue to say captured some of the major areas that we had agreement on. If you go back to the clip issued by the Prime Minister at that rally, he clearly said there were issues that needed to be worked out still. So he said pensions were reinstated, but there are issues to be worked out still. And he could have made such a statement because what was signed in that MOU was some of the broad areas for which we had agreements on. The election came, and with that, the government on the issue of the gratuity started to renege. We took industrial action. Our salaries were docked. Everybody felt you all didn't work, so you all shouldn't get paid. All you're wrong, all you sign, all you this. So the unions decided the best place to settle this matter is in the court. And so the matter went to court and the court ruled. Now that the court has ruled, the question is, what are you going to talk about? Are you going to talk about a payment plan that is presented to you? You can't go and talk about the issue of pension again because the court has now ruled. And the worker is saying to their leaders, if you go and talk anything with government and in any way affect or influence my benefit, I am going to take you as an organization to court. I was reading an article yesterday I think in the New Today, where a member of the Public Workers Union wrote to their president indicating that, hey, if you guys not careful on what you do and what you talk about, you could be in problems. So this is a situation, the level of trust on this particular issue broke down in 2018. So asking for a meeting now, that is not a meeting to talk about how you're going to pay. That is a Market Hill task, an up Market Hill task. Because all our members want to hear is how you're going to pay. That is what is important at this point. So I am certain that once it is that discussion that the meeting is called for, I believe workers would say to their representatives, you now need to go and see what they're putting on the table, come back to us with it, and we would tell you if we are in agreement. That is what this is all about right now.
Senator Steele, the contention by the trade unionists here is that because of that breakdown of trust, and in the context of an already adjudicated court ruling, that there is nothing to meet about until there is a roadmap with respect to implementation of payments. What say you?
Okay, the first thing on trust. I mean, the adage, all frustrations can't hold everybody to ransom. We have to move forward. And I don't want to look backwards. I want to look forwards. And I think the critical point in this is that the government's decision not to appeal the High Court decision, as we didn't appeal the Hermelin-Armstrong ruling. We honored those obligations to the letter. So we have demonstrated, based on the past, how we would intend to move forward in terms of honoring this latest court judgment. But what is absolutely critical is that, or it's important to recognize, and Mr. James, you know, it's easy to oversimplify this, but this is a really complex and challenging position. Not only government finds itself in, the implications of this don't just rest at government's feet. It rests at the feet of every man, woman, and child in Grenada, Carriacou, and Petite Martinique. Decisions that are made now and in the short run in terms of how we implement this ruling will have impacts for generations to come and impacts on the path of our future development. And in order to address this, and it goes back to the question that you asked Mr. James, Dr. Bubb, the only way that we can actually resolve this is by all parties coming to the table. This requires true partnership. This requires us all being true Grenadians, putting our best minds together to see how we can resolve this. And to put this into context, I mean, the question isn't whether workers will get their money. They will. That is not the question. The question is the how and the when, and the context of this as laid out in the Prime Minister's address. Work is still being done in terms of calculating the liability, and we cannot make premature decisions, take premature actions until we know the facts, exactly what this liability is. But just from the preliminary work that's been done to set the context of this, we're looking at an immediate payment of somewhere in the region of $465 million. That's in the first instance. And then an annual liability that will be in excess of $120 million every single year for the next at least 37 years. When you add that up, that's a $5 billion liability, and that does not include interest payments. We're a small economy. Dr. Fletcher outlined the dynamics of our economy. We can't just absorb this. So I understand and I appreciate, I'm sympathetic to the appetite to find a very quick resolution. which results in the outpouring of financial resources to meet this obligation. But it just cannot be done, not just because it's an NNP administration. Any other political party in office will have to make the same deliberations. And whether it's calls from individual workers, whether it's collectively through the unions, whether it's other political parties, this is complex and requires serious thought and consideration, which is why this special committee has been constructed with renowned economists, Chief Justice's legal luminaries, to look at the technical implications of this, to look at the different options that are available so that we do not bankrupt the country, because that is what is at stake here. We do this and we can't do anything else. How are we going to service our healthcare sector? How are we going to service our schools? How are we going to support non-unionized workers? How are we going to support non-public workers who are also going to be impacted by this? Everyone will be impacted. Sucking $5 billion out of the economy is not a small thing. So it requires serious thought. It requires serious analysis. And that's what this government is committing to. And the findings from this committee, we're expecting those recommendations to be delivered in short order within a 3-month period. So we're not trying to drag this out. So the implications of this are serious. And what government is calling on is for all of us to come together and work through this so that it's in the interest of the country and in the interest of the people of Grenada, Carriacou and Petite Martinique, and we do not shoot ourselves in the foot for short-term populism.
Mr. James, quickly respond to Senator Steele, and then we have to get to Dr. Fletcher, who I want to
Dr. Bubb.
Yes.
Senator Steele is only consolidating my point that from a political perspective, all these things sound nice. All these things sound nice. And you get a focus on the result. But what they don't seem to accept is the process that is often used in dealing and addressing these issues. And when you look at process, so we're hearing it's not if you're going to get the money, but you are building a case to the nation that to pay pensions is going to affect everything else negatively. You can look at a coin from either side. And I would say, yes, we agree. There are other aspects, if not all aspects of the Grenadian society that would be affected by this. But there isn't any positive inclination coming out of them having to pay this contingent liability to the worker. It is almost so what we're seeing is government not accepting that as an employer, it owes workers pension. Who is not working with government? Of course, government is government, and government has to reach out and meet the needs of every Grenadian. But the bottom line is the government has a responsibility for its workers. Kellon, you cannot leave your child in your house hungry and go down the road and feed the neighbor's child. You feed your child at home, you feed your family at home, and of course, you ensure that because you know you have, it's little, but you are going to feed them and you're going to share with the neighborhood. This is the approach that has to be used. Not one that if I feed you, it's because everything else would crumble. This is not the approach that should be taken, right? We hear about a committee, but clearly when you hear the names that have been called in this committee, it's people who have been close, have a history of serious closeness to the administration. So again, you ask yourself, is this a committee really? Who's representing, let's say, civil society on this committee? Who is representing the interests of church on this committee? Nothing of the sort. It's a committee that has been handpicked.
The Prime Minister did say that consultations were had and will continue to be had with civil society. I know that Dr. Fletcher was not in one of those meetings, but I know that other people who he's associated with did attend that initial meeting. But sorry to cut you. Go ahead, please, Kenny.
Yes. So, Kellon, even that shows us. Listen, the judgment came out. Government called a meeting of the social partners. Every pronouncement before what we had on Tuesday at the Trade Center that has been made on this has been made at a party gathering, right? So why wasn't this addressed? Because of its importance to us as a nation. Why wasn't it addressed as a national issue first? No, we went all around to galvanize support against the public workers on this issue. We cannot continue to run our country like that. Again, I would say government has an obligation to its workers. Yes, it has to take care of the farmer. Yes, it has to take care of the unemployed. Yes, it has to take care of the single mother who don't have anything to go by. We have to take care of everybody. But in all of that, the bottom line is there is an employer responsibility that the government has to its workers, and it has to start owning that. And when we accept that, I believe we would start to see some movement in the way that people react and respond to this issue of the pension.
All right, Dr. Fletcher, let me bring you in here. You heard both perspectives from Mr. James and Mr. Steele. And Mr. James, sorry to keep you. I hope the parade has not left you, but we will be wrapping up shortly. I assure you. And Mr. Steele, I'm sure you have to get to your lunch. So we will be.
All that is part of it. All that is part of the labor struggle.
Absolutely. So thank you all, gentlemen. Dr. Fletcher, we'll get to you for a quick just a response to those two perspectives, and then we will take a break, gentlemen, and we will come back to wrap up. Dr. Fletcher.
Dr. Bubb, I'm not sure how quick it will be, but please allow me to say the following before we go on this break.
Yes.
The pension issue in Grenada could be considered complex and complicated to deal with, but it is not that complicated and complex if what we have been hearing, especially from the permanent secretary at the Department of, how it's called now?
Public Administration.
Public Administration. It seemed to me that the government has done an enormous amount of work on this issue from years ago. There's supposed to be data wrong and data available that will allow for a rapid resolution to this problem without necessarily giving the perception that we now have. The second point I want to make, Dr. Bubb, is that there is an issue of fear that is driven to the population, to workers, to the poor people, to the various sections of the population, which is saying if we pay this money, and that money now moved from $1.something billion initial payment to $455 million thereabout. So there's an issue of which one do we believe. But the issue is that you're driving fear on one hand. Is it fear that is needed in times of challenges? Or is it hope? Or is it a vision to work ourselves out of the challenges that we have faced as a result of this ruling, which you know we are coming?
But Mr. Fletcher, some might say though that you're just being realistic. You are laying the cards on the table as is.
Right. So let me make the issue of vision and hope versus fear. When the NIS was created in 1983, it was not created out of fear. It was created partially on the basis, on the analysis that we had a bloated public sector, high numbers of persons, and the creators of the NIS were concerned about what we call at the time old age pension, it's retirement pension. And they're set about to put in place the NIS to assist. Now get this very clear, the NIS was never meant to be the sole source of retirement pension funds. It's part of the source. And the law speaks to that clearly. And in fact, Ewart Lane has done an enormous amount of work on explaining the NIS and the Pension Act. So rather than fear, let us deal with vision. NIS came out of a vision that was born out of analysis of future challenges, future hurdles we have to meet, and therefore we structure to meet it. Dr. Bubb, for years we have had this pension issue on our hands. For years. It's not a yesterday issue. It does not arise from the court ruling. What did we do about it as a country? What did we do? Did we try to solve it and put mechanisms in place about it? No. Now the ruling comes out, it's about fear. And that fear is leading to pitting one group against another. I think this is not the way to go as a country. In times of challenges, countries pull together. You pull your people together and you ask the big question, the strategic question. How do we overcome this challenge we have? And then we pull our people together. We mobilize our people, which was a great hallmark of the 1979 revolution. We pull the people together and we says, let us now go on a road to solve this problem. But you're putting groups against groups. You're saying, yes, we agree to the court ruling, but here are the basis on which we can appeal, but we will not appeal. So does it engender really a source of confidence in workers and workers' organization that this process will go through smoothly and will not end up as the 2018 agreement, that was agreed upon, that was touted, and now the unions are saying, well, there was no follow through on it. So the workers are rightfully probably asking what will happen to this new one. And it has implications for business, fundamental implications for business. Because from the business perspective, I would argue, and very strongly, that this $455 million is an investment that is worth making in this Grenadian economy. It is an investment that is worth making in the lives of persons who have retired and those who are due for retirement. We have to look at how do we deal with this $455 million that has the potential to participate, to contribute towards the transformation of Grenada and moving Grenada in the right direction. For example, the issue of intergenerational wealth. How do we transfer wealth from one generation to the next? Part of the issue deal with transfers like pensions and so on. NS, which is a contributory scheme. The pension is what is owed to you. But also, it has implications to say, look, when you are aged or whatever, and you start to suffer from all the ill health issues, you will be receiving monies from the government that will help you to cushion those consequences, and that your children and grandchildren may not have to take so much out of their pockets to provide you, the retiree, with that funds. So you're allowing the retiree to have the funds, to live over the poverty line, because it has implications for allowing people to fall through the net and end up under the poverty line. So these payments are critical and must be viewed, in my humble opinion, as an investment opportunity to make the largest transfer of funds in our history to the people of Grenada. Not just the public servants will benefit, those recipients, but the entire economy. The entire economy stands to benefit. Generations to come stands to benefit. So I think the thrust really has to be to ramp up and let us stop looking and using committees and so on as a way to segue out of things, but let us face the challenge with hope, with a vision, with a dedication, with a commitment to deal with the issues and to solve the problems, as complicated as they are. We have gone through many challenges in our lifetime, from the revolution come up under Gary, but we have overcome them, and we will overcome this one. But we cannot overcome it by generating fear. We cannot overcome it by saying, well, look, if I give to you, others will not benefit. We have to view this as expanding the economy. Now, if we take, and my last point, Dr. Bubb, before we go to the break, if we take the view that it is one group against the other, we will not find a solution. If we take the view that it's an investment opportunity that allows for our growth and development, we'll find solutions. We must now huddle down. I heard Mr. Richard Duncan and Ms. Bain gave good explanations and really provided and put on the table some substantial decisions that could be made. Let us rally around that and pull the country together to overcome this hurdle. It is a hurdle, but we can overcome it. And let us look at this $455 million as a major investment
In addition to annual payments, but quickly, Mr. Steele, before we get to the break, because we do have to get to a break, but I want you to rebut quickly. Yes.
Some very quick points to Mr. James. He said government is not accepting the ruling. We have accepted the ruling. This is a brave and courageous position that we have taken. We have accepted the decision, and we're working. We are calling on all parties to come together, to work together. Now, this question over fear, this isn't about fear. I'm no economist. However, an oversimplification of this to say that we're going to find, as an initial payment on top of all of our other obligations, $465 million. That's going to be an investment into the economy, and that's going to transform the economy. We're bearing in mind our budget for 2022 is 1.1 billion. So effectively half of that budget, we're going to find that money, and that's going to transform the economy. I'm no economist, but I don't believe that actually stacks up. And there are no stepchildren in this. So again, Mr. James spoke about, charity begins at home. Government has a responsibility, and that the position that we're taking is we're responsible for everybody, public workers, as well as every other worker, every household in this country. And a liability of this size, a challenge of this complexity, requires serious thought. So the closing point on this is what government is asking is for us to all come together. What I'm hearing is an entrenchment of this division. Government is saying, no, we must come together. This has to be a collective decision, but it has to be based on facts and figures that are independently verified, that we all agree to. And in terms of how we do this without jeopardizing all of the other responsibilities the state has, that we do that collectively and together.
Okay, Senator Steele, on that note, we will take a quick break, gentlemen, and we would come to close the program. But as a reminder, viewers and listeners, this segment of the Bubb Report is brought to you compliments S.A. Johnson Funeral Home, a Caribbean family-owned funeral service. They offer a full range of funeral services at affordable prices in New York City. S.A. Johnson Funeral Home, because you deserve to be treated with dignity. Okay, folks, stand by. We will be right back. Why would we have ambassadors representing the state that do not understand clearly what their terms of reference are?
To the cards that I have drawn that I am the minister at this point in time. And for members of the public...
But you're also a servant of the people. The unions are not threatening to withdraw their labor, and neither are they threatening to shut the country down, as you did.
I think your summarization of my position is highly inaccurate, and may I dare say a bit inflammatory.
The strategy did not work the last time for you. So what would make this?
Well, you're assuming that we're doing the same strategy.
And welcome back, folks. We are about to conclude this week's episode of the Bubb Report. I really appreciate the level of balance that we were able to bring to this discourse. It's important to hear all sides of the story. That is what journalism should be about. And that's what journalism is all about, really. And at this point, I wish to invite Mr. James to offer some closing comments. Mr. James, this issue with respect to the pensions will continue. We have a 3-month window of exploration, if you will, by the government with respect to the implementation of this payment. We'll be watching the space to see what that looks like. But I'll give you an opportunity, Mr. James, for some closing comments as we wrap up the Bubb Report on May Day today.
Dr. Bubb, the theme for today's May Day in Grenada is promoting workers' unity, consolidating and advancing gains in these challenging times. And the trade union movement would be the first to tell you that we know and we accept that there are significant challenges, economic, social, at all levels, in this small and vulnerable economy. But we are confident, as Dr. Fletcher said, that every challenge that we have faced as a nation in the past, that we've overcome it. But what is important in driving this process is an environment that is transparent, an environment that is void of political games, an environment that speaks to bringing Grenadians together, an environment that understands that government is an employer, and as any other employer in Grenada, be it Jonas Brown and Hubbard's, be it George F. Huggins, as every other employer in Grenada, the government of Grenada, in all of its responsibilities, has an obligation, a contingent liability is owed to its workers. The government has accepted that a pension is necessary. That is why, coming out of the Pension Disqualification Act, the then leaders, politicians in the country, went and passed legislation that they can receive a pension benefit. They subsequently passed the Special Pensions Act, and you hear them talking a lot about it as if it's something bad. It's not something bad, because the intent of the Special Pensions Act was to capture some people who started to work prior to 85 and were leaving without any benefit. So there is room for some special pension arrangement for some people. But as we go forward with this, if there's going to be dialogue, this dialogue must be transparent, this dialogue must be balanced, and I am sure that the workers of this country would rally around our government to get this thing done, because everybody wants to receive his or her money, his or her benefit for which he or she has worked for. And clearly, the economic voices in our country have said to us, this could be done. And there are ways that it could be done. Let us not see it as doom and gloom, but let us start seeing this as an opportunity to put money in the hands of middle-class, average Grenadians, some working-class Grenadians that can assist in stimulating the economy and could assist in lessening the lines that we see on a monthly basis going to the Treasury, where public officers could now assist their family members, that their family members are no longer dependent on government for any form of poor relief. But as families, we can help each other. We can do this. Happy International Workers' Day to all workers in Grenada, Carriacou, Petite Martinique, and around the world. It has been a pleasure, Dr. Bubb.
Comrade James, thank you. And I say Comrade James because I was a proud member of the Technical and Allied Workers Union, under the then leadership of Senator Chester Humphrey, stood with myself and the GBN workers at the risk of getting arrested and all of that. So I also miss those days of activism. I'm still an activist. So happy International Workers' Day to you, sir. Senator Steele, I'll bring you in for some closing comments, again, for representing the government's position here. And it's over to you, Senator. But as we get to closing comments to you, a viewer is asking, where was this contingency plan, or government's contingency plan, before the ruling, or in anticipation of what the ruling was going to look like, as part of your closing comments, Senator?
Well, to come up with a contingency plan that covers billions of dollars is unrealistic. I just want to underscore the complexity of this. It is easy, I keep repeating myself, it's easy to oversimplify and popularize this. It is complex, it has serious implications, as I said earlier, for not just this current period, but for generations to come. This is a significant challenge, on top of all of the other challenges that we're facing, not of our making, whether that is the pandemic, whether that is war in Europe, whether that's climate change and what we're having to deal with there. So Dr. Fletcher said in his opening about there's some serious headwinds. There are. These are serious times, and it requires serious minds and safe hands in terms of how to deal with this. What I'd like to say in terms of the New National Party and historically New National Party administrations, we have a track record of addressing labor issues, pressing labor issues. So whether that was us passing the labor code back in 1995, 1999, that period, whether it's a removal of income tax on pensions and severance, whether it was a special pensions act, whether it's what we achieved through the MOU and in terms of the execution of that, whether it's our obligations to workers, that $140 million in increments, pay increases, and it shouldn't go unrecognized. I think we were the only country within the region to pay salary increases to public workers during this pandemic. So our record and the question of trust in terms of putting workers first, or certainly in terms of addressing, doing all that can be done in terms of addressing their needs, our track record speaks for itself. And it's in that spirit that we are calling on all stakeholders, on the unions, on civil society, the private sector, the churches, all for us to come together with the right analysis, with the right methodology to ensure that the right decisions are made, not just for today, but for generations to come. And in this current climate, with all of those headwinds that we face, the New National Party government has demonstrated time and time again in times of crisis that it has the experience, it has the track record of economic performance, dealing with serious social and structural issues, tried and tested. And this is not a time for experimentation. This is not a time for quick or cheap politics. It is a time for serious minds and solidarity as to how we chart this course and how we deal with these serious headwinds that we are facing.
Okay, Senator Steele, thank you for representing the government's view on this, and certainly we will be following up on with the Honourable Kendra Matthew Stewart, the parliamentary representative for Carriacou and Petite Martinique, because one of the feedback that we have been receiving on the Bubb Report is that we don't focus on Carriacou and Petite Martinique a lot. So we want to right that wrong. So thank you, Senator Steele, for representing the government here today. And Dr. Fletcher, I will give you the opportunity for the last word.
Right. Great. Let me say the following. Dr. Bubb, you raised the issue of the civil society and possible implications. As I said to you before, I am not aware that civil society has met on this specific issue and have a definitive position. But there was, in fact, a meeting of civil society, and I did not attend, as none of my other colleagues did not participate in that meeting. But, you know, one of the challenges we have is that persons in civil society organizations more and more are becoming a big challenge to attend consultations, because it is sometimes seen as an opportunity to tick a box because somebody wants a box tick, and it's not done with a genuine, very genuine intent to work together and have collective outcomes from those decisions. And probably that's a topic for another program. But I also want to, specific to the topic on which we are ending, I want to state the following. One, it would be very useful to have a detailed terms of reference for the committee that has been established, because we see various mix of persons on that committee, including a strong legal head. And I suppose there will be need for legal counsel and legal advice, but where that counsel and advice will take the committee to and the government, we are not quite sure about that. So we need that. And we probably need some expanded skills and talent on that committee that will look at the consequences. The other point I want to make is that the 455 million, strategically, it ought to be a payoff, but the critical thing will put heads together to navigate the wind, not to stay steady against the wind, because staying steady against the wind, the mast may break and the ship may bust open. So you need hands that can navigate the winds. And for example, actual science personnel and so on is needed, and to probably look at a stagger payment system. Fundamental to pension, Mr. DeBug, and I know you want to close. Please allow me to say this.
I'm not Mr. DeBug.
Sorry, Mr. Dr. Bubb. Let me say this, that the Pension Act in Grenada, 1958, was provided to by the British, by our colonial folks. Why was that so? Two critical reasons. And I want your audience to listen to me on this. It was provided to us by our colonial folks in the past, and now we seem to be challenging it. So it was useful, number one, that the colonies look like the Brits. The Brits were colonizers, and they were interested in ensuring that the colonies, administratively at least, mirror some of their policies. So there is an alignment in policies and programs and laws between the main power and the rest of us. Pension was one of those outcomes. Secondly, the pension payment was also, in my humble opinion, a recognition by the colonizers that public servants are not really well paid while in the peak of the work period during their working life. We generally will choose to go in the private sector as our first choice of jobs rather than the public sector, because we get more at the private sector. And therefore the Brits are basically saying, look, for your sacrifice that you have made, for the sacrifice in living a real good quality of life during your working period, at the end of the period, here is a package we want to give you in compensation for that which you have provided the country. And that is important. And it's about stewardship and leadership. So we need to look at that. And also, I want to make this point, that the expansion of the NIS was in fact in a way, and I want to underline this, to ensure not just public sector receive pension, because up until the NIS, only public workers that was really legally due for pension. What the NIS did was to expand the basket to ensure that the private sector workers also have an opportunity to receive a pension. And that is important in terms of transformation of the economy, transformation of the lives, the quality of lives of our people, especially in the period when we are hardly able to work. And finally, the Trade Union Council. The Trade Union Council and the unions that are involved in this, we are hearing numbers from the government side. I have not heard any figures or so put forward by the trade unions. So Brother James, Comrade James, as some people say, sometimes you need to lawyer up, you probably need to account up. You need some financial expertise within your ranks if you are not yet, if you have not yet have those. So you can do your number crunching as well, and that you can verify and validate what is coming from the other negotiator, right? So you can secure the interest of the workers and of the country in that regard. So in closing, let me say that we are all concerned about this matter. It is a defining moment for transforming Grenada, for taking Grenada forward. It is a transforming moment to get hands on deck and heads on deck that can navigate the headwinds so that we arrive at a destination safe, sound, and not broken. Thank you very much.
Okay, all right, Dr. Fletcher, thank you so much. Thank you so much for your indulgence today. And as always, it's always a sacrifice for guests to come here on a Sunday, you know, because Sunday tends to be a day of rest for folks. So we thank all of you for agreeing to appear on the Bubb Report today. Viewers and listeners, we thank you for watching today's program. You can catch a repeat of today's program on WPG 10 this evening at 8 p.m., on CRFM on Wednesday at 4 p.m., and on the Grenada Broadcasting Network at 5 p.m. on Wednesday. On behalf of the hardworking producers of the report, we thank all of you for your participation on the Bubb Report today. Happy International Workers' Day. Good day, good luck, and goodbye.